Hello, good evening, everyone. This is Lloyd speaking. So, last week I actually gotten Alexis to actually help me conduct the show because I was a bit due to my fault. So, let me share my screen. Okay. Yeah. So, what happened now is that if you realize, I mean, the scheduling of the show now, I've requested to be fortnight. Yeah. So this is to better reflect what I have. I mean, the intention for the show is that I wish to showcase different indicators that might be possible that is profitable, whether on its own or whether you implement in your current strategy. Yeah. So henceforth, I think every time the show is starting, I will share with you the link. This will be the same link throughout the entire year. So whatever indicator that I've tested, it will all be in this link. And then within the link, you also find the Google Sheet, yeah, which is my back tested results. Yeah. So you can see that last week I've actually tested the MACD momentum, Lexus and View. If you have any question about this last week, just you can put it in. It's still the same thing. This week last week I've actually tested BB squeeze. All right. So without further ado, now, so surprising to me is that BB squeeze is actually more profitable compared to last week MACD momentum. Yeah. Now, I have to clarify one thing is that whenever I test an indicator, it's not my intention to only showcase the profitable ones. Yeah, because whenever I start testing, because I've tested so many indicators, at the back of my head, there are some which I favor, there are some which I automatically leave it out. And then those that I favor, usually I'll run a back test on it. Yeah. Before I run a back test, I have completely no idea whether they'll be profitable or not. So it is to my surprise. Yeah. So what I've done is that the initial phase, usually I have 3 phases of backtesting. What I've been sharing with you is just only the initial phase backtesting results. If it interests you, then you can do your own backtest and determine how you can implement into your own strategy. Yeah. So within the show, I will just do a simple explanation, which is what I'm doing now. So it is to my surprise that MACD momentum and both the BB squeeze on its own is actually profitable. Yeah. So now for today's indicator, which is a BB squeeze, sounds like baby squeeze, but so it is actually on its own. It's actually a combination of 2 indicators. So you can see that it is the first one is actually the Bollinger Band. The second one is actually the Keltner channel. Yeah, I do not particularly favor the Keltner channel. Yeah, but you can imagine both the Bollinger Bands and the Keltner channel are very similar indicators, just that the calculation are different. How similar are they? You can it's very akin to the different oscillators, which is the William percent R, RSI, stochastic. Yeah, calculation a bit different. Keltner channel is actually using ATR. Yeah, Bollinger Band is more using more of the deviations and moving average. Yeah, so the moving average is actually 20 SMA. Yeah, so you can see that it encompasses both 2 indicators in one. Yeah, so in the past, I've actually presented about Bollinger Bands, and one way which I like to trade it, which I advise you to trade it, is actually to trade the BB band breakouts. Yeah, so you can see. So what happens? Let me just edit in. I don't know if I had it. Trends. Yeah. So this is, you can see that this is the squeeze. Bollinger Band squeeze. This is the squeeze, and then when price breakout, it is actually a good way to jump the trade. Yeah. So what this indicator does is that it combines both of these Keltner channel and the BB bands, and it indicates wherever there's a breakout. Yeah, breakout of both indicators. Yeah. So that's basically the logic behind this. So let me show you how to read this indicator. Let me go back to the daily chart. I've tested this indicator on a daily chart. I have no intention to test any of my indicators on the H4 and H1. I mean, I'll leave it up to you because H1 and H1 actually requires much more vigorous testing. I suspect most of you are actually working it out. In that sense, that the daily chart will be much more suitable for your trades. Yeah. So for this particular indicator, if the middle line is straight, you can interpret it as price is ranging or consolidating. When the middle dots are green, If I blow it up, you can see that the red is actually mini crosses. It basically tells you not to trade. So if the crosses change to green dots, then it represents there's a breakout. Right? So don't trade for the red crosses. Green dots means there's a breakout. Now, adding on to it, if on the green dot you see there's a dark green momentum bar, that means to say bullish breakout. When it changes to light green, that means the momentum is fading. Now, of course, if it's a, let me see, yeah, green dot and bearish and red color vertical bar, that means it's a bearish breakout. And then when it changes to orange line, that means the momentum is fading. That's about it. So what you got to do with trading this, the easiest way to actually approach this indicator is that don't touch the red, trade only the greens. Yeah. So and whenever there's a bullish breakout, just buy. Whenever there's a bearish breakout, just sell. That's about it. Now, the issue that I have with this particular indicator is that I don't have a particular fixed way of placing my stop loss. So there's a bit of a guessing game. So I'll just go through with you how I actually test this indicator. So you can see that this is a bullish breakout. Right? I don't really care about the price actions. I'm not a big fan of price actions. So whenever there's a bullish breakout, I'll just buy. Now, there's actually two ways how I determine where to place my stop loss. The first is actually the previous swing high or low. That's the most easiest method. The second is that if there's no recent swing high or low, by recent I mean the past 5 candles, then I will actually place my stop loss at the last possible crossover. So you can see that in this case, price actually peak or bottom out over here. So that's where my stop loss will be. Yeah. So in this sense, this will be a trade whereby, let me see, this is the breakout bar, and then my stop loss will be here. You can see this is my stop loss at the low of this belly, and then this is the entry bar. So I'll just simply use market entry, and I just enter. Yeah. So I'll still be using 1R risk to reward, and then a 2R risk to reward. So this is actually, I'll first go through how I place the trades. So you can see there's another breakout. Stop loss this time around will be at the crossover. You can see that over here, there's a crossover. So my stop loss will be at this bar. All right, so the entry will be here. And since this is where the crossover happens, my stop loss will be at the low of this bar. So this trade is actually a stop out trade. So I'll just go through a few more examples. Now this is completely red, so I don't have any trades. I won't be testing any trades over here. Green dot. So this is a long trade, long breakout. And then since this is a crossover bar, my stop loss will be here. So obviously, market entry, stop loss here. This trade eventually, after I think more than 3 weeks, I'll be stop out. Yeah, after more than a month, 30 days, in fact. See green dots, this will be a bearish breakout. And then my stop loss will be at the high of this bar. So this is another losing trade. So even now, when we backtest, there mustn't be the element of hindsight. All right. So wherever you can see that after a cross and it breaks up, I'll just enter the trade, regardless of what price action is telling me. Yeah. Beforehand, seriously speaking, I don't really care whether it's breakout crosses. I don't really want to put too much of those into my testing phase. Yeah. So again, this will be a breakout bar, bearish breakout impact. Now in this sense, oops. So in this sense, this is a bearish breakout bar. So by right, my stop loss should be over here. But since this bar is the highest, then my stop loss naturally will be at the high of this bar. And this will actually still be resulting in a stop loss trade because the very next trade actually went higher than the high of the last bar. Okay, I'll go through a few more examples. This will also be a short trade. Green dot, bearish bar. So this is also the highest at that point of time. This is also the highest. Yeah. So this will also result in a stop loss trade. So another bearish breakout over here. And then this will also be a losing trade. Yeah. So this is how my testing goes. Bullish breakout. So now this time around, where will my stop loss be? Right. So the stop loss, as I've said before, it will either be at the last swing low, or according to the indicator, where the lowest point should be. All right, which is the past recent 5 bars. This is how I place my stop loss. So you can see that just now, as I mentioned, whenever priced, or look at the indicator, you can see that this is a fading of momentum. So somewhere between here will be the lowest. And then when you look at the price action, it should be here, right? So there it is, entry, and my stop loss will be here, the lowest of all. So this also results in a stop loss trade. Same for this. So my stop loss will actually be at this bar. So this is actually a 1R trade, but for the 2R testing, it actually a stop loss. All right, I hope that explains how I actually go about testing this particular indicator. You can see that green dot. So throughout this is also another thing that you need to take note. Wherever there's a bullish breakout, doesn't mean that you'll go into consolidation before there's a bearish breakout. A bullish breakout, after that, an immediate turnaround can result in a bearish breakout. I will also take that as a trading setup. Yeah, but normally speaking, after a bullish breakout, you should have consolidation before it turns to bearish breakout. But in this case, it doesn't have. So this turns out to be a winning trade. So this will be my entry. You can see my stop loss, I place it at the low. All right, so I hope that explains. Now let me go to the results. So this is where it starts to get interesting. Yeah. So for the baby squeeze, I don't know if Alexis actually explained last week. I've chosen, it will be constant throughout the entire show to the end of this year. I will have 4 majors, Euro USD to dollar yen. I'll try not to pick majors that is closely correlated. I'll have 4 minors. Again, the intention is not to pick minors which is closely correlated. There will bound to be some correlations, sometimes negative correlations, sometimes positive correlations. And then 2 indices, which is the SP and the FTSE. Yeah, I purposely avoided the Hang Seng Index because Hang Seng Index is actually very closely correlated with SP. Yeah, FTSE not so much. And then the 2 commodities pair, gold and WTI. Yeah, obviously I won't be choosing silver. Silver again is very positively correlated with gold. And that's how I picked these 12 pairs to choose to backtest. Don't have any other special reasons. For each particular pair, I'll backtest with 1R. Some of you really like higher hit rates. For me personally, I don't favor that. My own personal trading, I either go for 2R or 3R. Yeah, whether that particular style of trading is suited for 3R, that's up to you to backtest. Yeah, you may need to actually optimize the settings. Oh yeah, I forgot about the settings. So for this time around, the settings, I leave it as per the original settings. I didn't change any of the settings. Right. So now comparatively, for each pair that I've entered, I will enter about 20 trades on the daily chart. Almost equivalent to past 1 year testing, or sometimes 2 years, it depends. And these are the results which I got for this particular indicator, which is really fascinating to me. So out of 240 trades which I've taken with this 12 pairs, for the 1R risk to reward, I have 121 winners, 99 losers, and it results in 22% winning. It's still positive. 95 winners, 125 losers. This is expected. Whenever your risk to reward, you shift it higher, your losers tend to be more, but your winners should cover it up. Yeah. So I end up with a 65% winner for out of 240 trades, which to me is surprisingly well. Now this takes me to another part of the testing, is that wherever I test a new indicator, in the past, when I do my initial phase testing, if the results come back and it is neutral or slightly negative, personally, I'll consider that particular indicator without it has potential already. If the results that comes back from the testing is slightly negative or neutral. Without optimizing on itself, if during the initial phase testing, if it's positive, I will pay a lot of attention for that particular indicator. That means it has huge potential. Yeah, particularly for the last 2 rounds of testing for both the MACD momentum and the BB squeeze, I did actually implement a trend indicator. That means whatever the indicator shows me, I will take it, regardless of trend. Now, as you have learned, no matter from who you have learned, trading with a trend is always a better choice. Then automatically, I will assume with the assistance of a trending indicator, the results should be better. By how much? I wouldn't want to speculate, but it should be way better, especially for the 1 hour win rate. It should actually, theoretically speaking, it should boost the win rate by 50%, which is quite a fair bit. Yeah. Then, of course, that next comes to the question is what kind of trending indicator you should use, whether it's super trend, whether it's a moving average. You got to do major testing on that, yeah, or whichever you like. That's what. All right, so these are the results. And I said I'm pretty amazed by it. So you can see that market entry, stop loss at previous 5 candles high or low, also depending on where the indicator shows us, either the crossover or the last swing high or low. That will be the easiest. Again, the red X, please, that means do not trade. The green dot is okay to trade. So that the momentum will be indicated by a bearish breakout or a bullish breakout. That's about it. It's a very, very simple way. I would say the simplest way to actually trade this particular indicator. It's a breakout indicator. Yeah. So for those of you who are aspiring to be a full-time trader, I will highly emphasize that given that the daily results are pretty good, you can actually test this on a H1 and H4. Yeah, I will actually expect better results. Even so, if you actually try to optimize it, you should get way better results than me. All right, so I'm saying that any questions that you all have, please feel free to shoot it. All right, this is the format I'll conduct my show throughout. Simple explanation of the indicators. I don't think there's a particular reason for me, particular need for me to share the algorithm, because sometimes I myself don't know the algorithm. I just need to know how it works, thereabouts. Yeah, just have a good idea of it, and then I'll start testing it. Yeah. So let me see. Any questions from here? Where do I look at the questions? That's YouTube, right? Okay. Hi, Gary. Yeah. So if you are a how would I say a frequent viewer to my particular branding of the show, just keep the link, the Google Drive link, because I'll be using the same link throughout the entire year. All right. Yeah. All the indicators I've shared will be in that particular folder with the backtested results. That's about it. Yeah. Some indicators I might be tempted to actually to test it differently, but no matter what happens is that whenever I test an indicator, oops, what did I do? Nope. Nope. Where did I run to? There. So whenever I test an indicator, I tend to have my screenshots below, which give you a slight idea of how I actually enter, and where do I actually put my stop loss. So this is just a visual guide to it. A couple of screenshots that explains it. Right. Now, of course, I don't really want to test much more complicated way of managing a trade, that means shifting stop loss to entry. I think that will be the second phase of testing. If you're that I will be doing on my own if I'm really interested in that particular indicator. Yeah, and this is something which I highly emphasize for you to do it. Yeah, there are some management which is better. There are some management which is not that good. Again, I would say it boils down to your own personality. Yeah, so this is how I test this indicator. Again, I emphasize this with the default setting. If you're going to backtest it, please try to optimize it. Yeah, the default setting I think is good enough, but I think there are better optimized settings out there which you can actually play around with. All right, seems like that's about it. All right, so with that, you have no questions. I'll be lingering around for a minute. No question there, I'll be leaving. I hope this particular indicator interests you. Yeah. So anyway, indicator-wise, this is my hobby. I'll be testing indicators, coming up with different trading system that I like to explore. Actually, this is how mainly I lose money nowadays, by playing with different indicators. I mean, small money. I always like to just test on the market for fun. Yeah. But I have come up with I think quite a few profitable trading systems which I'm trading on my own, which is cool. That's my journey. All right. Shaheen, you have a question for other things? Well, we do have some time, so go ahead, shoot it. Oh yeah, if it helps you, I mean, during my testing is that what I did. One thing to warn about some of the indicators I test. If you look at the naming, is that it has MTF and multi symbol. I will highly emphasize you not to use the multi time frame mode. MTF, that means multi time frame. That means this indicator by default you'll be calculating on the current time frame, daily time frame, weekly time frame. That means on the 4-hour time frame or on the daily time frame, it can show the weekly calculation or the monthly calculation. I would say not to do that, because the moment you enter into MTF, it is by nature of MTF, the indicator will actually recalculate. Yeah, because if you look at the weekly chart, the bar for the weekly chart has not ended. For the current weekly chart, it has not ended. That means the indicator has to recalculate. Yeah, it is not finalized. Yeah, so for those of you who are not familiar with MTF, I would suggest just stick with current time frame. Yeah, don't change it. Against most of my indicators, not mine, sorry, those that I shared, these indicators are, it's not mine. I just look at forums and I think they're interesting, and so I just take it. Yeah. Play around with the alerts, which I think is the most useful one. I don't stare at screens. Alerts sent to phone, that'll be particularly useful. Shaheen, you have a question for other things. How to find support and resistance levels to enter? Now, I mean, this is an easy and tough question. Now, the easy way of answering is that if you don't know how to find support and resistance level, my suggestion to you is use whole number. Yeah, so you can just use 0.7. This would be particular whole numbers. 0.6. Yeah, so whole numbers are actually known as prime levels. Yeah, and then the in-between ones, 0.75. Yeah. Personally, this is how, this is also one of my favorite ways of using SR. Yeah, so there are a whole lot of studies that talks about prime levels and how to trade with it. Why not this way, Shaheen? Just for you, because you asked a question about support and resistance level. The next two shows, I will actually share with you two other indicators in how you, using indicators, how you can find SR levels. Yeah. One is actually a fractal indicator. The other will be actually supply and demand. I hope that will be probably more useful to you. Yeah. I mean, for now, I will actually recommend prime numbers or psychological levels. I think my next two show, I will share with you all how to use indicators to find support and resistance level. Yeah. I love indicators. They are objective as hell. I don't need to guess them. Yeah. So one of it, I will just say it out now, is fractal. The other is supply and demand. Yeah. Probably catch me in the next two show. I'll share with you. All right. So for this, if you're new to the show, wait a minute. All the indicators, when you want to install a new indicator, just go to File, Data folder, and it's just good habit. All right. For me, is that after File, Data folder, go to MQL4, Indicators. All right. Put all the indicators that I've shared with you over here, or those that you have downloaded in this folder. And for me, and our advice for you is particularly good habit: create a folder. All right. So for me, I just create as personal. And then within personal, for me, I have all lots of other indicators. So for if you don't have that much indicator, you need to create subfolders. Just create something called personal, or just create something called new, and just dump those indicator in it. So after you have done, after you have put the indicators into those folders, just go to your navigator, right click and refresh, and it should come up. So you can see that these are the default indicators that you have. All these are the defaults that you have. But once you create a folder, name it whatever you want, personal, it will be much more easier to find. Yeah, you don't have to find from the defaults, right? So that's my advice to you, how you can actually install new indicators. Yeah. So with that, this is the end of the show. I hope this particular indicator interests you. To me, I'll actually be doing further testing. Maybe sometime down the road, probably in the middle of the year, I might show you optimized settings with the trend indicator, if I do find that it has immense potential. So with that, thank you. Have a good night, and tune into other ATW shows which might help you all tremendously in your route to profitable tradings. Goodbye.